It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Yeah, I love that theme song. I love that theme song because it means that it is time for another episode of The Nonprofits, folks. The show where we discuss the news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Secular Rarity, and I'll just be honest with you. Today's topics are a bit heavy. Some of the stuff that we're going to talk about is definitely upsetting, and we want all of our viewers to be safe and know that if some of these get a bit too heavy and you need to step away, we understand. But as always, we have a wonderful, wonderful group of hosts today that are going to dive into these topics and really parse them out, starting all the way on the other side from me, the cartoon of cartoons, the one and only Teo el Ateo. How are you? I think you're muted. That's okay.
Of course I was muted. My great comeback. When I finally returned, I had to mute myself and look like an idiot. Of course. Thanks for pointing that out, Secular. I love you because of that. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, man. We are always happy to have you on. And up next, somebody that it has been too long since I have gotten to talk with this wonderful person. I always love her comments on things, and I know she has some spicy stuff for us today. Cindy Plaza, how are you?
Hi, I'm really happy to be here too. It's been a while since I haven't been on with you and Theo as well. Nice to meet you, Blatant Blatheist as well. I think it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, somebody that I have seen so much of their content, and I am just so excited to keep seeing his face on these shows and more. Blatant Blatheist, how are you, man?
I am great. I think I'm a regular now. I think we can go ahead and just throw that in the hat. I'm a regular now.
I think so. And I think that is an awesome addition to the team here and at the ACA as a whole. So, which, by the way, folks, if you didn't know, this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. So definitely some great stuff there. And today, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. Up first, we're going to talk about Texas lawmakers trying to make drag shows considered sexually oriented businesses. Then up next, we're going to talk about the FIFA World Cup and all of the controversies surrounding not only the host nation, but the organization of FIFA as a whole. Then we're going to ask, whose child is it anyway, as parental rights groups continue to try to get laws passed and push their agenda. And finally, we're going to talk about delegitimation. Gosh, that's a tough word. Fear-mongering and disgust. What is stochastic terrorism? And as always, folks, with all of these wonderful shows here on the Nonprofits, the links to today's topics and the news that we discuss are available in the description below. And also, if you want to come to the show prepared, we'll just go check out the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night because we always post those articles ahead of time. So let's not dilly-dally anymore. Teo, what the heck is going on in Texas?
Oh, dude, I wish I knew what the heck is going on over there. I mean, Texas hating people only for existing based on the hatred forced upon people due to a silly book that was written over 2 millennia ago. I should be surprised, but sadly, I've seen so many crazy stuff going on in Texas that I am not surprised. And yep, obviously, it had to be the Republicans who are doing this, who have decided that their best strategy to, gain more votes and become more important and popular is going to be starting an all-out war against a group of people who just exist. So I don't know, guys. It's hard for me, but when I start talking about this, I immediately start having flashbacks, and it's not even like I haven't been talking even 2 minutes, and I already need to talk about the most famous Christian in the world, Adolf Hitler, most famous Christian in history. And yes, I know. Oh yeah, Teo is trying to, equiparate this with the Nazi movement because he's exaggerating. Actually, you know who is also doing the same thing? Neo-Nazis. They are using this hatred against these people together with Proud Boys and Christian nationalists. And they decided to go and fight LGBT people going to events. Actually, we'll talk a little bit about that later and how they had to be protected by certain groups with guns and all of that. But people who are talking in order to promote these laws these legislations that are trying to punish people for existing, they also, I'm not sure if they do it on purpose or what, but I'm going to quote a guy called Tucker Carlson, who was covering some protest, and he opened saying, "Another weekend in Weimar, Germany." If you don't understand that, people, this is a reference to extremist view that the quotation mark degeneracy of Weimar Germany, especially the LGBTQ community, was what made necessary, quotation mark, the rise of the Nazi Party to, quotation mark, restore traditional values. So, yep, that's something shocking, something terrible, and I want to know your opinion, guys. Blatant Atheist, I'm sure you had something very, very interesting to say about this, right?
Yeah, I mean, because we've seen this before. We've seen this so many times at this point. Like, it's not even surprising at all. This is the GOP playbook through and through. Like, when they fail to garner enough support because of their lack of actual legislation, I tried to say that word last time too, and it killed me. When they don't actually present anything for you to vote for them for, they have to present what they go for every single time. It's obstruction, hate, fear, all of these things that they just throw into a pot, and that's how they get their base out to vote. So I guess after we saw the red wave become a pink drizzle, this is what we get for that. And I mean, like, the sad thing is, like, they use the fear that they stoked, and they get that to their base, and that's what generates all of this fear. So they use this fear that they've already generated to generate more vote, and it's a sick cycle. It's as brilliant as it is evil.
Yeah. And one of the things that's so upsetting for me a lot of times with this stuff is how so clear it is, in my opinion, that the point of these is just hatred. Because if truly these individuals believed that there was some, massive problem of child abuse or something, they wouldn't purposefully pass laws that criminalize other people. And that's what they're doing. All of these different, there's like, I don't even remember how many, there are so freaking many that are put in this like pre-filing session for Texas, but it's not just Texas. My state of Tennessee is doing this exact same crap. It's just that Texas has more eyes on it. But yeah, it's so upsetting how time after time after time, these bills are being introduced, and they have these grandiose, we're trying to protect the kids, we want to follow the science, and then one paragraph later in the bill, it is just clearly obvious that they are hurting kids or pushing aside the medical understanding, that we've actually got. And so it's just hate, in my opinion, and that is so freaking frustrating. But Cindy, what are your thoughts on this? We haven't heard from you yet.
I'm sick and tired to see my community attacked from all sides like this. What what have we done to deserve so much hate? How pathetically weak you have to be to believe that you can only exist if you target someone weaker than you. Uh, what the fuck is wrong with all those people? We're just trying to live our lives and not bothering anyone, and all we get is hate constantly, constantly. Fuck Texas, fuck the US, this shithole country that can't even protect its own citizens. Fuck this shit. Nobody deserves this. The thing is, last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a mass shooting in a gay club, and we're going to talk about that in the last segment. But there is a targeted effort to use this community as a scapegoat, as you said, Secular Rarity, to avoid talking about everything else. And this leads to more violence. We know that it happened, it will happen again, and I'm afraid that if these attacks against the LGBT community continues like this in the US, we will see more and more and more mass shootings like we've seen at Club Q.
Yeah, I guess. Well, this is one of those, things that I'm obsessed with, those harms of religion, that religion forces people to hate specific people in order to exist and gain power. And we will keep talking about this. And as you mentioned, Cindy, at the end, we have a special segment about this. But I have to mention how awful is that religions have so much power nowadays that they feel that they can do whatever they want. And apparently they can. Personal anecdote, last week I got invited by a friend to TikTok to talk some debates online. And once again, I had to mention that Hitler was a Christian, and she begged me, please don't ever do that again, because they are going to take my TikTok down, because you cannot say certain things in here, you cannot use curse words. And I thought, okay, so is TikTok trying to be child-friendly, family-friendly, something like that? Then reading this, I find out that people, certain specific Christian, for example, I found about a Chaya Reinich, who said, the police should go into the venue, talking about this LGBT event, and go in there and put bullets in all their heads. That's what the badge is for. They are literally calling people or police force to murder people only for existing. And apparently that is totally okay with this such platform that gets offended if you say fuck or something like that. So it's awful, and it's terrible that the USA is becoming more and more backwards every day, and they are turning into a Christian version of Islamic countries, but with Christian fundamentalism. And it's sickening, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah, and I think, so folks, as always, anytime that I'm on, I always do really try to say to the viewers, please go out and read these articles. As much as we can break down a lot of this stuff in the time that we have, we don't always have enough time to get through it all. And one of these articles for this segment, lists out a handful of different bills that are being put out there. So one of the ones that we're highlighting is classifying drag shows as sexually oriented businesses, which there's a lot of regulations on that. And I think in general, it probably makes sense that we have some regulations that a strip club isn't right next to a kindergarten, right? I think there's some reasonable things there, but the way that the law is written is in such a vague way that basically if there is a trans person out in public, period, you could be considered liable for some of these things. Another one of these bills that's being put into pre-filing in Texas is one that specifically classifies gender affirming care as child abuse, specifically classifies what is worldwide considered the proper medical treatment, considers that child abuse. So again, as always, please read these articles, because you will get a very good understanding of the amount of bigotry and hatred and how hard they are pushing, which is the frustrating part for me, I think. Blatant, did you have any other thoughts on this?
I just want to like point out the weird situation that we're in when we look at all of these Christian fundamentalists that are pushing this stuff. Because you look at any LGBTQ plus community event, anything, whether it's a drag event in Texas, a gay bar in Colorado, or just a hospital that performs gender affirming care, we always see the same groups involved in all this stuff. It's far right extremists, Proud Boys, or actual Nazis. And then the people leading the charge are the good old red-blooded American Christians. So I say that to say, if I showed up to a protest, I don't care if the protest was "We love puppies, puppies are the greatest thing." And if I go to that protest and I'm agreeing with this thing, and if I look to my right and I see Nazis, I look to my left and I see Proud Boys, I'm probably going to question what I'm doing at this protest. So at some point, Christians are going to have to look at the company they keep.
Yeah, totally agree. Cindy, any other thoughts?
Yeah, you mentioned something that I was going to bring up. They complain about sexualization of children, and then the same people brought us the child Miss Beauty pageants.
Oh,
I mean, talking about sexualizing kids, that's, I mean, this is forbidden in France, for example. Those shows are forbidden here in France because
makes sense.
it harms kids. So it's complete hypocrisy. It's just it's just bullet points to fuel the fire, because nothing gets you more traction than angry people. Nothing. Maybe disgusted people, but we'll see that later in the last segment.
True. Well, Teo, wrap us up on this and give us your final thoughts, and we'll go on to the next segment.
Yeah, really quickly. It's pretty ironic how they say, no, we want to protect children. So what do? They start attacking hospitals around the country that provide gender affirming care. They start making bomb threats. There is a guy called Greg Abbott, is a governor, who ordered the investigation of families who had trans minors, and he made those families run away from their state only because they were going to go to jail just for the crime of having a transgender child. So yeah, they say that they want to protect children, but they are attacking children, especially those who are discovering who they are. And yeah, as Secular said, please guys, read about the articles, read about all these new laws, HB 42, HB 672, HB 436, because it's awful how they are targeting people only for existing and discovering who they are. And it's really sad.
Yeah. And definitely, as long as there are people out there that are going to continue pushing this hatred and bigotry, I feel pretty damn confident that we're going to keep calling it out and trying to hold those people accountable. So, with that being said, folks, we want to definitely give a massive shout out and thank you to all of our veteran and new viewers for helping us get over that 11,000 subscriber mark. That is a huge deal, and it means so much to us. And if you're watching now and you haven't subscribed yet for some reason, just do it. It's so quick. It's so easy. You always get great hot takes like these already. And once you have subscribed, you hit that like button, you ring that bell, and you will always be notified of new great content happening on this channel. You already know we've got new episode premieres every Sunday at 3 Central. But did you know that on the other days of the week, we've got cool stuff coming out on the channel as well? So like I said, ring that bell. You'll never miss anything. And then why not just make some new friends by sharing this link out to them, or get acquainted with relatives or friends from the past that you haven't talked to, or, I don't know, why not just share it? Like, you don't even have to try and make friends. It doesn't always have to be about you, why not just share the link out, and we can get some more people and have a bigger and better community. I mean, seems like a good thing for me, but anyway, but Did you know that the atheist community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Well, we do, and it is the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all of the awesome ACA shows in podcast form. You can subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts to listen to all of the episodes of the nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, all the freaking great shows that the ACA puts on. So don't miss anything. Go subscribe. Again, super duper easy, folks. But now we are gonna move over to Qatar as we talk about the World Cup and the controversies. So what is going on here? For those who aren't aware, every 4 years, an organization called FIFA gets together and brings all these different countries and athletes into a single space, and they play soccer or football, depending on, where you're from. And it's this really big event, and a lot of people have been watching it. They've been doing it for a really, really long time. A handful of years ago, about 12 years ago, this organization made a really weird choice by picking one of the smallest countries in the world, also picking one that has general average temperatures at such a ridiculous degree that it is not safe to be out in, and so on and so forth. I won't say all of the terrible things, but basically, there has been a lot of terrible things. And I don't just mean like, hey, they're not going to sell beer at the stadium. Sure, I guess that's a bummer. But I think the 8,000 migrant deaths is a lot worse. So definitely I want to open this up to the panel and get everybody else's thoughts. I have a lot of personal problems with the host nation as well as FIFA, this organization itself. But I am still watching the World Cup, and I am excited to see, the results of it. So definitely this is a conflicted space for me. Blatant, what are your thoughts? Are you a big soccer fan? Are you following it? How do you feel about this?
I'm not the biggest soccer fan, but it's the World Cup. It's the World Cup. Like what I find interesting is how many people have been criticizing Qatar, just Qatar, but not actually so much criticism, at least in the media, of FIFA as a whole. Like, there's a lot to criticize there. I don't know if you guys have been following their history. There's not a lot of organizations throughout human history that are like have a high moral standard at the same time as they're like up for sale to the highest bidder. Like that, those two, they don't usually mesh too well. Yeah. And like looking towards the future, there's more of this coming. I mean, the next one's 2026, and it's going to be hosted by multiple countries. For the first time in FIFA's history, it's more than 2 countries hosting. Awesome. But then you look 4 years ahead of that, and it's Saudi Arabia. Woohoo! Another bastion of democratic morality. So, yeah, I mean, this World Cup itself, this one right here, of course, there's plenty to judge, but Qatar is not uniquely evil amongst the countries of this world, including mine.
Yeah, good point. Cindy, what are your thoughts on this? Are you watching? Are you following along? Do you have a team you're rooting for? I mean...
Yeah, I have a team. Yeah, we don't see it here, but it's Team France, obviously. Yeah, I'm an amateur soccer player, and so I wrote notes about FIFA, but I think you guys are going to cover it, so I'm going to go to a different route. I want to explain why it is so difficult for people to not watch the World Cup. So the World Cup is now almost 100 years old. It's the biggest sporting event and has been for a long time. It has an amazing history from Maradona's Hand of God, from the game of shame between Germany and was it? I don't remember. But yeah, this game of shame that changed the way the match are organized. There was this the Brazil Germany 7-1. That's also historical. The French victory in '98. I mean, the history and the legend behind this event is massive. And so, because of that, for a player, for a soccer player, it's like Mount Everest for a climber. It's the biggest thing you could achieve as a soccer player, being part of your national team at the World Cup. It's unthinkable how many players want to dream about this, because it's the best thing that you can do as a soccer player. And so, of course, FIFA plays on that. And there's also the fact that financially, for the teams and for the countries, it's very important, because during the competition, there's a lot of companies that broadcast the games. Then there's ad revenues from TV and internet, and also there's this political takeover when you win. I remember in '98 when France won. The president at the time, Chirac, he made it like it was France, the entire country, and not just the team. And that happens in many other countries. Soccer is universal, and because of that, when the national team wins, it's a major event. You see a boom in birth. 9 months later, you see a boom in consumption. You see it has a huge impact on the country. So that's why, from the players' perspective to the national federation perspective, it's impossible to boycott this competition.
Yeah, definitely, and definitely very appreciative. I know that a lot of our viewers, especially if they're in the United States, may not understand the impact and the power that this event has for millions and millions of people around the world. Teo, what are your thoughts on FIFA? Good, bad?
Awful. And I will start right away. Why? I'm a Latino, you know that. In here, religion and soccer are equally important. Soccer, as you call it, football in here, is just another religion, and it's awful. I mean, I hate both. I'm sure you realize that. I'm the kind of guy who celebrates when his country fails, because that means I will be able to sleep at night. I won't have a whole city outside celebrating. And I don't like soccer. I find it boring. Yes, I'm a cartoon who cannot enjoy Captain Tsubasa. Sorry, people. I'm that type of guy. And I find soccer as harmful as religion. Both of them are the opium of the people. And I have talked a lot of times about why both of them are awful, terrible, and they create a lot of problems for people. I'm so sorry, Cindy, but I can only see the negative thing in here. And I want to start talking right away about Sepp Blatter, the president of FIFA during the 2014, who accepted those 3 millions that are covered in blood right now. His hands are covered in blood because, as you said, he decided to accept this bribe from a corrupt country that decided to murder 8,000 workers just in order to have a nice stadium for people, because they didn't have any infrastructure for such a huge event. So I can only see negative things in here. I'm sorry, guys. And yeah, sorry, all Latin America. I know you hate me right now.
That's all right, Teo. We'll probably invite you back in the future. Blatant, any other thoughts on
when the World Cup is over?
Yeah.
Please. I would just piggyback off of what Cindy was saying. I mean, I can appreciate the love for the sport because I mean, you like look at the Olympics like that. I get because I'm an American. I get that. I've never watched anybody shot put in my entire life, but when that event is happening during the Olympics, did we win? Like I'm tuned in for that. So I get that, but I mean, even going off what Teo was saying, like look at the treatment of these people. Not even the people that died. Look at the treatment of the people that actually live. Because I mean, we have to look at. We know the World Cup is usually played in the summer, right? But it had to be moved to November because Qatar's average 125-degree heat in the summer. So they had to move it to protect the players and the fans. Do you think they were protecting the workers in that time? No. And then we look at the living conditions that have been reported from inside, like I guess from inside their camps, I guess you would call them. Like there are 30 people to a room with one bathroom, one kitchen, with limited food and water. Those living conditions are horrible, even if you're being paid fairly, which they aren't. $8,000 over a 3-year period to send home to your family, which is being garnished. The vast majority of that minuscule bit of salary is being garnished by Qatari contractors that, since these people are poor and they're coming here for work, they have to pay to come here to work. So, of course, they take loans from, I'm just going to call them loan sharks because that's what they are. So these people are essentially slaves.
Yeah.
Not even essentially, they're slaves.
They are just outright slaves.
Yeah.
And for anybody out there who was paying attention when Teo mentioned about Sepp Blatter, the former president of FIFA, some of you may be out there thinking, oh, well, at least he's not the president anymore. They must have gotten somebody that is better. So they didn't. So Gianni Infantino, I don't know if you watch this show regularly or not. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I'd like to tell you that your handling of this situation has been so fucking paltry, in my opinion, that you should step down immediately, publicly, and give back every single dollar you've ever taken from this organization. And you should probably give that money to the migrant workers in Qatar who have not been paid. One of the reasons I say this is because in the middle of a press conference, he proceeded to say this when being criticized. He said, quote, "I feel gay. I feel disabled. I feel like a migrant worker because I know what it means to be discriminated against, to be bullied as a foreigner in a foreign country." Let me go ahead and fucking explain this to you, Gianni. You are not being discriminated against. You are being called out for a shit decision. And for the fact that under your watch, thousands of people have already died. Thousands more are being intimidated and criminalized just for being who they are in that country. And the repercussions from this will continue for years to come. That's what you're being criticized for. That's not discrimination. You fucked up, man. That being said, though, Cindy, maybe a lighter take, or I don't know. Maybe you also feel the same about this president.
No, this guy is something else entirely. John Oliver made an episode recently about this World Cup, and he said that FIFA was the most corrupt organization in the world. And I think I know someone here who believes that this title goes to the Catholic Church.
Silver and gold, right?
Right, Dale?
I'm quite sure. Yeah, totally. You read my notes, I see.
No, actually, no. But yeah, several other people beside Sepp Blatter got some money from Qatar, including David Beckham and even Zidane, which is my favorite player of all time. But yeah, he got 2 millions to advertise for Qatar so that they can get this World Cup. So it's not just FIFA.
Yeah, and it's I have to say it's awful how as Secular said, it's awful how FIFA has been handling things. You know that over there, being LGBT or women is not easy. There are laws against women that don't let them study, make decisions about work, or even their own health care. You know that consensual sex between adults men is illegal over there. Imagine going to jail because you decided to have sex. It's awful. And people from certain soccer teams, they were going to wear some bands in support of those people, and FIFA decided to threaten them.
Damn.
Yes, FIFA is threatening players if they dare to show support to victims of these corrupt governments. How the how the hell can people keep supporting either FIFA or their awful religions? People, you disappoint me, and it hurts me.
Yeah, I definitely it is one of the best comments I ever heard on this, and I don't even remember who said it. I think it was just some random TikTok video that I was just passing by, and the individual related this to a house with abused children in it. And what he said was, he said, you as the guest may come over to my house and you may see this party, and the guests, their kids, hey, their kids can eat candy if they want, and they can jump on the table and they can turn the music up louder, and they and you're thinking, wow, everything is just fine. But those children at that house that are being abused, you better believe they're down in the basement and they're staying quiet because they know what the consequences will be in that situation if they act out of line. And what this commentator said was, knowing that, how are you going to behave in my house when you come for the World Cup? And I truly think that was just absolutely perfect, a perfect encapsulation of this, because yeah, when we're seeing the images that are being displayed worldwide that FIFA is just so excited to show, all they're showing is the people real happy and buddying up with each other, loving each other, and oh my gosh, this is so great, this is awesome. They're not talking about, though, the fact that already there have been multiple reports coming out of individuals attempting to go sit in their seat with something as simple as a rainbow on their freaking lapel, and they are being intimidated and told that they are not allowed to be there if they don't take that off. So again, as somebody who is excited for the event, as somebody who loves the idea of the world being able to get together and all of us rallying around each other and stuff, I mean, I love all of that, but I don't think we should be quiet about these problems. And I don't think that just once the World Cup ends, I don't think we should stop our criticism, because as Blatant said, as others have said, Saudi Arabia is where we'll be in 4 years. That's where we'll be. And what are we going to do? We're just going to start criticizing, this country again and this government. Hey, look, they've got problems. I don't disagree. But what we're upset about is the fact that the organization as a whole, a nonprofit organization, mind you, a nonprofit organization that has literally no competition, a nonprofit organization with no fucking competition in the world, with $1 billion in a bank account. You're telling me that they don't have the ability to choose a better place? You're telling me that they don't have the ability to enforce regulations for workers that keeps them safe? That's bullshit, in my opinion. That's just bullshit. And so truly, I mean, I'm glad that we have seen some criticism, at least. Blatant, do you think anything's going to change? Do you think that we're going to see any type of, movement from this organization as a whole, or 4 years goes by and we're going to be back in the same boat?
The sad thing is, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. The sad thing is, I don't see it changing because where everybody's up in arms right now. How many times have we done this? Like any tragedy that happens in the world, everybody's up in arms for a minute and then it's on to the next thing. Everybody's back to scrolling after that. So, of course, they're going to wait for this to die down. They're going to go back to business as usual. So, unless we continue this push, then no, I don't see any change happening at all because they're not going to do it for themselves because it's the right thing to do. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I kind of unfortunately am in that boat too. I don't think it's a pessimistic view. I honestly just think it's a realist view. They make hand over fist money and they're not going to give that up, I think. Teo, any other thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah, I really like your example of those children being abused because in your example, people could bring their own children and those children could behave in any way they wanted to. In Qatar, actually, they are treating them just as the other children who are being abused. If they see you kissing another man, you're going to go to jail. If you're a woman and you dare to expose skin from your body, you bet that you're going to go to jail. So every single person who is going to Qatar right now and who is living under this dictatorship where you cannot even drink alcohol, remember, that is the type of country that Christians want in the USA, and they are trying and fighting so far to achieve, as we saw in the first in our first topic about what Texas is doing. That is your future Christians from the USA if you allow fundamentals and extremist Christians to keep doing what they are doing in the USA. So pay attention, people, and everybody pay attention. Those are the reasons why activists is fighting the war. Yeah, we are fighting so far against those problems, and we want to bring attention to them.
Yeah, definitely. Cindy, anything else on FIFA World Cup? I mean, France has been doing okay so far. You know, they could win back to back. Like that's
Yeah, I will just say Russia, Qatar, then 3 countries which will be an ecological disaster because the number of planes people will have to take to go see the games
very good point.
will be just terrible. And then Saudi Arabia. So what's next? Syria, North Korea. What else?
Yeah. Very good point. Very good point indeed. And before we move on, I told you all at the beginning, our wonderful viewers and listeners, that a lot of these topics are pretty heavy. I think this is a very important topic. It is a little upsetting for sure. I will also say that again, I think we as those that participate and get excited about this event, and Blatant talked about the Olympics, and the IOC has their damn problems too. Trust me, they're not a great organization either. I think we have an opportunity to, again, voice these criticisms, voice them loudly, voice them strongly, and show that we want change. And I think we can make that happen. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I do think we can. And I want to leave us on a little bit of a high note, which is just to say that I know technically by the time that this airs, we're still in the midst of this World Cup, but I am already looking to 2023 because the 4-time world champions, the U.S. women's national team, is about to bring home a 5th trophy. I am putting it on the line. I am excited. That is my team. I love those athletes. They're some of the best in the world. So yeah, truly, really, really excited. Our women's national team is just amazing. They're amazing. I love them. So anyway, if any one of the U.S. women's national team is out there and wants to contact me, ACA email. Anyway, before I go completely off the rails, we probably need a bit of a break. I know I need a break. That's fine. We'll take one. We've got something because we know that sometimes you're busy and maybe you were watching the World Cup and you didn't catch all the ACA shows last week. That's fine. But here's what you missed.
and
You meet the most interesting, wonderful people doing this kind of work. You really do. I mean, I could be doing a show about accounting, I guess, or something. So glad to be here talking about sex dolls and all kinds of wildness with y'all.
And this one says, ex-Christian Aaron is just one X away from Pornhub. Maybe then she can get out of the garage on those cold nights. Now, first of all, I choose to be in my garage. That is my studio.
They even elected a conservative culture warrior to become the president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. And he's from the Archdiocese of the Military Services, because there's nothing better than a warrior for Jesus to lead us, right? Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
Your God created me to not believe in your God. So your God created me to burn. So your God created me solely for the purpose of being tortured for all of eternity. Yes or no?
Correct. I think you have it correct.
Cool.
Disagree.
Your God can eat my shorts.
You're avoiding the point because you don't want to address the Bible and its views on genocide. So instead you decide to bring trans people into this. Do you really think that trans people are on par with the evil of genociding a population?
It says, Dan smells, John probably smells, in parentheses, I have no idea. MD Aware is unaware that he smells. Aaron used to smell, but only after being shamed into bathing, which she does reluctantly.
Hey!
And we are back, folks. And just so you know, if you can arrange to be in the Austin area December 15th, 16th, and the 18th, well, why not come hang out in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, and the Atheist Experience. Doors open at 6 p.m. on Thursday and Friday and noon on Sunday. Parking is where you can find a legal spot after the lot is full. And if you can't make it there this month, that is all right, because we will continue to broadcast live from the library the last week of each month. So make sure to keep watching the shows and go check out our website, atheist-community.org, for all the news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the future. I know that is definitely a fun time. A lot of people have already gotten out there, and we are hoping even more get out there. So if you can, make sure to be there. But again, we'll do it again in January if December doesn't work for you, folks. But we've got some angry parents out there, Blatant. What are they talking about? What are they saying here?
You're muted.
Blatant, I think
Well,
you're muted.
I'm not the only one.
That's all right. It happens.
We're taking turns, apparently.
Everybody gets a turn.
That's right.
So all around the U.S., parents are asking whose child is it anyway. Several parental rights groups have been making a major push in the current election cycle. I guess you'd say the previous, just past election cycle. These parental right groups have been pushing out their candidates in school boards all over the country, into our children's education, into public schools. And I, as a parent of an elementary school age child, I have plenty to say about this, but I will take some opinions from the squad before I dive in. So, SR, what do you think about these parental right groups?
Yeah, this is something that hits home for sure. There's a huge push for this in Tennessee. There's a lot of this that is focused on what's called that charter or voucher school type thing. And so that definitely has some pretty gross and disgusting roots. I'll touch on some of it a little bit. For those of many of our viewers may not have been around at this time, but one of the places that this whole like parental rights thing really started gaining traction was in the 50s and 60s. And I'm not positive that there was anything like massively important that was going on back then for public schools. I'm not positive. Oh wait, that's right. desegregation was happening, and it just so happened that the parents that wanted to assert their rights did so at the schools where suddenly Black students were allowed to be at. Gosh, that's such a weird coincidence that that happened. It couldn't possibly be the intention behind it, right, guys? Right? I mean, Cindy, am I off base here? Am I just, totally head in the clouds?
That sounds so paranoid. I mean, people aren't that bad,
Right.
People are nice. Yeah, but I'd like to focus on a couple sentences from the article. I quote, traditionally non-partisan local school boards have become fiercely political amid entrenched battles over the teaching of race, history, and sexuality. Candidates opposing what they see as woke ideology in public schools have sought to gain control of school boards across the US and overturn policies deemed too liberal. And I have to say, from an external perspective, from someone who doesn't live in the US, I don't see any valid reason why each state should decide what they teach their kids. That's the first thing. Why do you have 50 school boards that decide what is taught? That makes no sense. And because now the US is in a cultural literal war, education becomes battlefield. It's just another medium to impose their political view to people who can't stand seeing the world moving on while they stay behind because they can't keep up. And the reason why they can't is because those parents in their time didn't get a proper education. This issue is definitely not new. The US's education has been failing for, let's say, half a century, if I'm being generous, especially in rural areas, and now children are paying the price.
Yeah. Teo, what are your thoughts on this? Is this something that's a big movement in your area?
Oh no, in here, down here, despite this being a third world country, we don't have the third world country behavior of the USA. So in here, people actually know that education is important, and they put a lot of emphasis on it. And we don't have political parties trying to fight against education, because I think our politicians understand how important it is to educate people. Just kidding, they are erasing history in here as well, mostly due to certain political agenda. And it's interesting because do you remember those guys I was mentioning in the first segment? Certain political group, what was it? Oh yeah, Republicans and conservative groups, right? Those guys, can you believe those guys who are attacking people for existing are the same ones that are trying to manipulate what you can and cannot teach to children? They are starting a war against something called woke ideology, and apparently woke ideology is anything that teaches about race, history, and sexuality. So I was thinking about what this means, and it means that children from my country, my Latin American country, in another continent, very soon are going to know way more about the history of the USA than children from the USA, because these people want to ban anything that is not patriotic. So I guess everything about slavery, everything about segregation, all the ugly part of history that we should know, because, those who do not learn about their history are condemned to repeat it. Well, maybe those guys want to repeat those awful parts about history, and they don't want anybody telling them, hey, your side did this, or people did this in the past, so we shouldn't do this. Oh, no, come on. They want, their Christian Sharia law imposed, so of course they don't want people learning about their past.
Yeah, definitely. And Blatant, please give us I don't have any kids. Teo and Cindy aren't a part of this. Let's call it broken, to be kind to it, system.
Sorry,
One word.
I love how they, for some reason, added fear to furries being taught in history and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's definitely there's a lot of weird arguments in my opinion. But Blatant, you're actually dealing with this on the ground level.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this like? How is this, how does this come about in your daily life and your children's life?
It's insane. I have to teach my son a lot at home just to make sure that, like, I live in Hawaii, so it's not as bad. We've lived in Texas before. Thankfully, we're not there, so my son knows what slavery is. Go figure. But what what kills me with these people is the sense of superiority. Like, you have to feel like you are superior to even fight this hard to essentially parent my child under the guise of your rights as a parent. How does that make sense? Like, what gives you the right to decide my child's education? This, again, it's a case of people needing to look at who's on their side. Because you know who's absolutely not on the parental rights people's side? Teachers and teachers unions. They're not on that side. So you might be on the wrong side of this issue. It would be one thing if they were actually like fighting for better education, more funding, more books, not less. But in every case, we just see groups like Moms for Liberty only fighting to take away from children's education. They want less inclusion, less actual history, and less autonomy for the people who actually spend their lives trying to educate our kids. And what really pisses me off is that these are the people that continuously are the loudest voices in the room. As a parent of a child in elementary school, we are subjected to the loudest, most ignorant people in the room in every single case. And these are the people that are railing against CRT.
Yeah. Don't even know what the letters stand for, do they?
If you ask these people, like, I've seen several interviews with like just man on the street type interviews, and you ask these people who are like literally out with signs and saying ban CRT and all this, and you ask them what is CRT, and I don't know, but I don't like it. Like, what? Excuse me? Like, and I can clear it up for anybody that's not in the US and you don't know what CRT stands for. I can clear it up for you and for these parental right people. CRT is actual American history.
Ooh.
That's all. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And the reason these patriots, with the hardest of air quotes, these patriots, the reason they don't want the actual history taught is because they don't want to have to explain to their children why they're flying a Confederate flag in the front yard after those children learn what it actually represents. It's kind of hard to explain that away.
Yeah.
They don't want to have the hard conversations about sexuality and American history of marginalizing any sect of society that doesn't fit a cis white male idea. The ideology of a cis white male. Anybody that doesn't fit that are marginalized. You don't want to explain that to your kids, so instead you just rail against anybody that's teaching them something that you don't want them to know because it makes your life more difficult. Here's some advice. All the parents out there, this is advice that I've taken myself. Talk to your kids. Help them with their homework.
Yeah.
Understand what they're learning. And if you don't like what they're learning, they still have to get a passing grade. So teach them what you want them to know at home. At home. Like I teach my son. My son isn't learning critical race theory, so I'm teaching him that at home. Your kids aren't involved in that. I don't want my kids to be involved in your child's education. Again, the hardest of air quotes. That's all I've got to say. I'm off my high horse.
All very, very good points. All very good points, man. Cindy, any other thoughts on parental rights? Do they have rights? Should they be doing this? I mean, what do you think?
It's a concerted effort. We talked about earlier about targeting LGBTQ people. Now it's basically the same, but for children. So last week, the former president of the United States had a guest in his house for Thanksgiving. And a guy, if you listen to him talking, he literally says that he wants Sharia law in the US. That's literally his words. He wants to criminalize homosexuality, criminalize sodomy. He wants to remove the right to vote for women. And this guy was having Thanksgiving dinner with the former president, who is the focal point of all the fascist movements in the US. So there is a concerted effort behind all of this. It's not just random angry people, angry, stupid, ignorant people. It's a trend, and I'm really scared for the U.S. right now. I'm really scared about all the people living in there because, yeah, we avoided the worst in the last election, but I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon.
Yeah, and that I'm glad that you brought up the former president, voicing some of these issues as well, because again, like I said at the top, the charter school and voucher program for public education is definitely wrapped up into this parental rights movement. And the former Secretary of Education under our former president, Betsy DeVos, she specifically said that one of the reasons that she backs the charter and voucher program and these parental rights is because it is an attempt to bring God's kingdom to earth. That is a direct quote. Okay. If you go look at these charter schools, again, this is something that is definitely happening in Tennessee. Recently, our governor actually got into some pretty hot water over this. Hopefully, it will actually lead to some results. But when you go look at these charter schools, these organizations, they are oftentimes financially backed by very deep-pocketed, far-right Christian nationalist institutions and organizations. It's just blatant, guys. And not only that, that's bad enough. But the fact that the vast majority of these places have policies that are anti-LGBT, that are filled with, completely trying to obfuscate the past and say, oh, slavery wasn't that bad. The effects of racism in America haven't been that problematic. I mean, this is something across the freaking board. And on top of all of that, there are still some people out there who say, but the children do better in these schools. But every single time we have ever investigated, every single time we have ever checked score for score, they are doing exactly the same as their counterparts in public schools in those areas, or they are doing worse. Every single time we have looked into this. And yet, this movement still keeps going and it still keeps growing. And one of the reasons is because in the United States, we just don't vote for local stuff. When it comes to comptroller, when it comes to school board, when it comes to mayor, we just don't vote. And so if nobody else is voting, they'll put up their shitty candidate and they'll pull out the biography of Ruby Bridges because, wouldn't want anybody to read a book about a 6-year-old girl trying to go to school or anything. That would just bring up all kinds of problems, I guess. But again, before I go completely off the rails, Teo, maybe rein it in a little bit or give us some more thoughts at least.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I'm surprised I didn't know that the PO that guy, the former president, that guy, he had openly admitted that he wants this thing that I'm so terrified of, this Christian Sharia law in the USA. Now I will just have to quote the guy instead of keep explaining people why that's the way where they are going to. Good to know that he's not shy about it. But okay, I want to talk about a short anecdote. I will do it quickly. About this, people, please read the article. It's called Too Hyperbolic School Board Parental Rights. And as soon as I read this title, Too Hyperbolic, I remembered. Sorry, I got distracted. I remembered something that happened in one of my shows. I have a live streaming show where people can come and argue. And in the chat, there was a guy who was too smart for us, according to him. So he wanted to see if we were able to explain some things before he decided that we were worth his time. He made 5 very basic and silly questions. And when one of my guests was explaining that God is a hyperbolic idea of someone who has a lot of power, he wrote in the chat that hyperbolic was not a real word, that we were making up some words. And of course, I had to laugh. This made us realize how extremists tend to be people without a lot of education. The same happens with flat earthers. The same happens with conspirationists. So why is this that people without much education are trying to do so many harmful things? And I want to finish with this. It's because I think that I always say the same. Education is the best weapon to end with all the harm and evil in the world, especially the harms of religion. But I have realized that conversely, the lack of education is a huge enabler to all the harms and evil of this world, including the evils and harms of religion. So I think that education is such a strong tool to help people think, help people realize what things we have been doing wrong and how to improve, that when I see these groups opposing all the education, is because either they want to have an awful planet to live in, or they don't want things to change because they are gaining something by having miserable people suffering, etc. So yeah.
Definitely. Blatant, before we move on, any quick final thoughts?
Just on what Teo just said, that was perfect. They don't want things to change. That's exactly what it is. And that's why you have such a push against actual education, because when people find out that the patriotism, again, that they've been learning their entire lives is based purely on legend and blatant lies, I said blatant, I said the thing, blatant lies, they tend to fight for change. So if you can keep the populace ill-educated, misinformed, then you can better control them. So
Very
fascism 101.
Yeah, very, very good point. And before we get to our final segment of today, folks, I have to remind you that you can become a member of this channel for as little as 99 cents a month. All you got to do is click the join button below this video, and that will give you access to super sweet special chat emojis and another awesome announcement. By now, I'm sure that you know that our nonprofit store is up and running again, and we have all types of good items and a special limited time item each month. Well, we know that some of you have missed out on these great items that we have offered. So for the month of December only, we are opening up the ACA merchandise vault and giving you limited time access to all of our special designs from the past year. Just visit tiny.cc/the ACA vault. You can see all the past offerings, and we're even going to let you save 10% off your entire purchase by simply using the discount code the vault. But remember, when the year ends, so does this special offer. So make sure to go check that out, folks, and grab all the great limited edition merch that you missed in the past. But now, Cindy, you're going to tell us a little bit about stochastic terrorism. What is this?
Yes, so let's talk about those 2 articles. The first one, published November 21st on Only Sky, talks about this relatively new expression, stochastic terrorism. The article defines it like this. The stochastic terrorist is the person who uses mass media to broadcast memes that incite unstable people to commit violent acts. We all have in memory a recent court decision that was in this area. The article goes on saying that one or more unstable people responds to the incitement by becoming a lone wolf and committing violent acts. While their action may have been statistically predictable, the specific person and the specific act are not predictable yet. The stochastic terrorist then has plausible deniability. Oh, it was just a lone wolf. Nobody could have predicted that. And I'm not responsible for what my people or my audience do. And that has been used a lot, especially since we have an extensive use of social media. Then the second article, published November 5th on another website. Sorry, I missed that. They explain how stochastic terrorism uses disgust as a fuel. The article says propagandists have fomented disgust to dehumanize Jewish people as vermin, Black people as subhuman apes, indigenous people as savages, immigrants as animals unworthy of protection, and members of the LGBTQ community as sexual deviants and predators who prey upon children. And the specific use of this specific emotion, disgust, is described very well in this second article, which I suggest it's Scientific American. I suggest you go and read it because it's very, very interesting. Guys, Theo, what do you think about this?
Okay, well, really quickly, do you remember that I just mentioned how important education was? When I read this stochastic terrorism, I had to Google it. And I decided I speak Spanish. Let's see what it is in Spanish. Estocástico. Thank you, non-profits. Now I had to learn 2 new words in 2 languages, thanks to you. And as Cindy mentioned, this is the idea that you have one person who is telling people to do something, and you're going to finally hit a lone wolf who is going to turn into the quotation mark missile that decides to perform the attack. So the guy who is telling people to commit certain acts is not harmed, but the guy who decides, oh yeah, this person is right, I'm going to kill somebody, ends up in jail, and you know the other person keeps giving the message until it hits another person. Tucker Carlson and Chaya Raichik, the guys that I mentioned in the beginning, are a very good example of people telling others to, you know, oh no, the LGBTQ people are degenerate, they should be murdered, they should be killed. But you know what? You already mentioned Trump, and that guy is the perfect example. He started telling people, oh no, I should have won, so they started to storm the Capitol. One of the most interesting things that have happened in the USA. And yeah, what happened? Well, we will talk about that in another time. But all those people, and you know, this is the reason, I want to explain this. The reason why it's so hard to find those people who are going to become the missile, who are going to perform the attacks, is because everybody wants to be a free thinker. Nobody wants to admit that they are being manipulated or, quotation mark, inspired by others. So finding people who are going to accept that, oh, no, I'm being manipulated, or I'm going to follow whatever this person says, it's hard to find those guys. Just look at the guys who stormed the Capitol, and you would have never thought that people like them were going to do something like that, because, you know, they had good jobs. They were not like your traditional conspiracy, and I shouldn't use the word that I wanted to, conspiracy crazy person. So yeah, it's hard to find those. And yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Blatant, what are your thoughts on stochastic terrorism?
I think it's a result of late-stage capitalism. We can talk about fascism and all that stuff, but all this is made possible because of capitalism, because capitalism results in everything being for profit, including politicians and media. So how do you make news, everyday news, more profitable? Be provocative, stoke fear, confirm the disgust and biases of your cultivated audience. That's what it looks like. The constant bombardment of misinformation, the gays are grooming your children, drag queens reading children books as a grooming event. Hospitals that perform gender affirming care are mutilating our children. This is stuff that people are constantly delivered every single day on a loop. I actually saw, I believe it was on an online news network. They just did a compilation of Tucker Carlson repeating the exact same lines. And these clips were from months apart, but it was word for word. And he just kept going in about hospitals, mutilation, grooming. And it was just word for word. So this is stuff that people that don't have that online presence, you have to remember that grandma, your aunt, mom, most of these people aren't online. So they get their information from these mainstream media outlets. The problem with that is now all these mainstream media outlets have turned into Alex Jones. It's all conspiracy because they noticed that being a provocateur sells. Showing up in someone's manifesto gets you more money somehow.
Yep.
So until we get an actual opposition party, we're going to be stuck in this loop. It's just going to keep going.
Yeah, and I think my thoughts on this, I think are pretty simple. Because I think you've all done such a really good job of talking about this. And B, also, I think, a lot of our viewers here are going to understand what I say because if you hang out here at the ACA, for even a little bit of time, you often will hear hosts and guests criticize this type of fear mongering, right? This type of rhetoric that is specifically meant to delegitimize a community just so that when violence happens to them, on the whole, we don't feel so bad about it. This type of rhetoric is harmful, demonstrably. It leads to deaths. And that is why there are so many of us here that will spend every second we can calling out this type of crap. And I just think we all need to do it. I love what you said, Blatant, where we need a strong concerted effort against this, because if we don't, it is going to lead to more violence. It is going to lead to more deaths. And for everybody out there who's, in that nice cushy boat of not being, in a category where you will be discriminated and told that you're not a real person in the United States. First off, congratulations. You did nothing for that. You were just born into it by random chance. But it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop with dehumanizing trans people, right? It's going to continue. They'll start wherever they can gain traction. And then they will continue pushing it until it is absolutely everybody that doesn't, stand in line and follow along with them. So I really do think we need to continue calling this type of crap out, and we shouldn't let up on it. And as long as there are going to be media personalities like Tucker, sorry, I don't know why that's weird, Freudian slip. But that guy, as long as people like that are going to continue saying their atrocious things, we will continue calling it out here for sure. Teo, was there anything else you wanted to say on this? Oh, you're muted, Teo. It's all right. It happens.
Oh yeah, of course I had to do it twice in one show.
Of
course, yeah, totally. Okay, yeah, I was going to continue with what you said, and I want to quote from the article something that I think is very important and we should mention. Let me quote: "You can draw a straight line from the false and vile rhetoric about LGBTQ people spread by extremists and amplified across social media to the nearly 300 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced this year, to the dozens of attacks on the community, or community like those. That this mass shooting took place on the eve of the Transgender Day of Remembrance, when we honor the memory of the trans people killed the prior year. This deepens the trauma and tragedy for all in the LGBTQ community." And Cindy, I think that I would love to hear your opinion about this, because I'm sure you have way more to say about this than me. And I think that this is the exact and most important thing why we're talking about these horrible attacks.
Yeah, like you said, there's a direct link, and that's why we are talking about this specific article, so that stochastic terrorism comes more into the language when we talk about those things. But it feels to me like this is part of a bigger issue. people generally don't want to face the consequences of their actions. We see it online, where the relative anonymity gives people the sense that they can attack other people as much as they want. We see it in courts. We see it on the roads. We see it everywhere. And maybe this is something we should teach children at a very young age. We often talk about teaching critical thinking, and that's very important. But I think that taking responsibility for your actions, that's something as much as important as critical thinking. And I very strongly believe that it would make our society drastically better.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that is an absolutely beautiful way to wrap that up. And so, before we get to these final announcements, just a quick thank you to all of the viewers and listeners who have joined us for this episode. We know that it was tough, but we're happy that we have a space to highlight these important issues and talk about them. So, if you do enjoy us hanging out here and you like this wonderful community, well, you should join the fan social media outlets, because you can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the atheist community of Discord by just going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And if you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, well, you can support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the atheist community of Austin as the beneficiary. So be sure to use that link to help out the ACA, because every little bit counts and we really do appreciate it. And we value your feedback. We want to know what you like and what you don't. Make sure to let us know in the comments below the video, or just send us an email at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. And also make sure to visit the Atheist Community of Austin's official website at atheist-community.org, so you can know all of the latest on what's been happening. And feel free to give us, shoot us a link, send us some email, whatever you got to say. Contact us at tv@atheist-community.org. So first, panelists, Blatant, Cindy, Teo, I loved this. I thought this was so awesome. It is great to be with you all here. Let's real quick, we'll go around 30 seconds, just a quick wrap, and then we'll let everybody go home and go hang out and do whatever they want to do. Teo, what you got for us to wrap it up?
Well, I love being back. I promise I will stop making prophecies so you guys don't ban me again. I really miss you all, and I love being here with you. You are all amazing, guys.
Thank you. Cindy, what are your final thoughts?
Theo just stole my line. It was great being with you all. Theo, we've been away for a few months, and I'm glad to have you back. And so I hope we will do that again soon.
Definitely. And Blatant, final thoughts for us?
I just want to announce that I'm a regular. Yeah, just want to say that one more time. I'm a regular.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
this was amazing,
indeed.
as usual.
Yes, you will definitely be seeing more of these three wonderful people, because because they're great, and that's just how we do here. The final thing I want to say is, again, just a massive thank you to everybody out there that's hanging out with us. Again, I know sometimes we talk about some things that are heavy, that are difficult, but I think one of the reasons that all of us are here to do this is because we know how important it is, and we want a world that has less harm and has more well-being for people. I think it's just that easy sometimes. And when we see this terrible crap happening, we have to call it out, and we have to hold those people accountable. So I'm glad that we have a wonderful space to do that. And I'm glad I can be on here with some great people who always have really, really interesting and important points to bring up. So, but for everybody out there, thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.